Good evening. So this is evening on my side in the UK. We're currently starting off with 10 people. And we're going to start our conversation with Faiza. Faiza is our guest today. And Faiza is the co-founder of Slync. Slync is a HR tech business in London and focuses on recruitment for people from ethnic minorities in the UK. Now, we're going to give Faiza the floor to introduce herself. As we all know, this is a conversation. You're very free to put your questions in the chat as we go on. You're free to, if you have any ideas, any sort of advice you want to share with everyone, please feel free to pop it in the chat. So Faiza, the floor is over to you. If you could just give us a brief introduction and then I'll start with my questions.
Amazing. Firstly, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. And I'm Faiza. I'm the co-founder of Slync. Slync is a social hiring app for students and grads. We focus on video CVs rather than paper CVs, which makes it easier for early talent to kind of round up their skills through personality and skill sets. It's in essence a product that focuses on inclusion and diversity in the workplace. And the whole idea behind Slync was, reinventing recruitment for the younger generation. At the moment, we have 20% of Gen Z already in the workforce and 50% of Millennials are already in the workforce. So I think when we were developing the product, there was so much R&D behind the thought process of Slync, only because there was so much changing in terms of the workplace. The behavioral trends were changing. So hence, that's why we developed Slync. Oh, I can't hear you.
Yeah, I've muted. Sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for that. That was. It's sort of good to know what was the driving force behind it. Now we enter into the main conversations, and my first question really, it's always. I feel it's always good to get to know a bit about the entrepreneur personally, especially from their childhood, to see if there are any influences, while growing up that sort of set them on this path that they are on. So Faiza, if you could tell us a bit about your childhood, what was it like?
I think I had a very multi-diverse, multicultural childhood. My father was in finance and I grew up in a lot of different countries, including Turkey, Germany, Sudan. And I think that taught me to embrace diversity. And which is why I think when we developed Slync, there was this other side to the product. Obviously, it was about solving a problem, which is for early talent, not being able to go into, the right careers. But I think it was also about including real people, real individuals, and of course, people from all different kinds of backgrounds. It's not to say I never wanted to become an entrepreneur. I don't think that was ever in my plans. I think the course of my life just changed drastically. I was always very creative. I loved reading. I loved writing. I loved art. And that's what took me into journalism. That's what took me into English literature. That was my major at uni, and then I majored in journalism. So I think growing up, it was very different to what I am now, but I think that was the basis of who I am today, I guess.
Okay. And it's a good thing, because my follow-up question was going to be, did you always know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur? I think you've answered it already by saying not really. So, no. Okay. What I think, yeah, go on, please.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, what I was going to say is I think Slync, the fact, because when you think about early career talent, you're applying for a position, they're asking you for, I don't know, maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. work experience. So, it's good that Slync is focusing on this group of people or this generation, because they do, especially first-time career people, getting that first job is always a bit difficult. So it's good to know that, they are, that Slync is sort of really focusing on this, because there is a challenge there that they face.
Absolutely, I completely agree, and that's why we spent so much time on R&D. We did a lot of customer discovery sessions with graduates, with clients. We read a lot of case studies, how EY was changing their screening times from 9 weeks to 5 weeks, and I think the generations, so Gen Z and younger millennials, their behavioral trends were very different. They belonged to the Snapchat generation. They're digital natives. Technology is second nature to them. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't a floor that gave them the opportunity to really brand themselves. And this comes from personal experience, because when I graduated, I was literally on every job website. Either it was, you don't have the skill sets, or they'd be like, yeah, I think I don't think you'll enjoy this job very much. So it was always very demotivating that I didn't have the floor to personally brand myself. And obviously, when I had graduated, there wasn't like a lot of tools or platforms to kind of help me build up my portfolio, which is why we created Slync, because early talent don't have work experience. But then if you speak to employers, they will say, well, we don't need so much work experience. We will hire and then train. But I think there was always this gap in communication where, candidates were always afraid to get in front of cameras, or what should they say in a CV, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the pandemic really helped to change people's mindsets. I think when we launched Slync, it was very difficult. It was so unconventional that it was hard to penetrate into the consumers' mindsets, which is like the candidates plus the clients. But I think the pandemic really helped, because everything became virtual. And it's easier now for a candidate to film themselves rather than, pre-pandemic, where they were afraid to kind of show their faces, because they're like, I don't know if I want to show myself. And then you have to kind of support them into thinking you're going to be walking into an interview room anyways to be interviewed by the recruiter. So you might as well make a CV, a video CV, to kind of eliminate, all of that.
Okay, great. Thanks for that one, Faiza. Now, in terms of this branding, where you talk about how, the younger generations, or Gen Zs rather, that Slync focuses on, need to brand themselves. What do you mean? Brand, do you mean like their social media page or their CVs, or how does Slync help them in this personal branding journey?
So we took inspiration from an elevator pitch, which is 30 seconds. So our video CV is 35 seconds, which is enough time for you to talk about yourself, what you've done, your achievements, etc. And what we mean by branding yourself is, through a paper CV, there's only so much that an individual can talk about. And especially for a recruiter, it's very hard to distinguish hard skills and soft skills. So you'll probably end up having 7 CVs with the same hard skills. And especially for early talent, it's really difficult to distinguish themselves. And I know with early talent, most employers look for the soft skills, so communication, written, etc. So I think it's a nice way for candidates to kind of brand themselves. And I think a lot of soft skills are tick marked in that video CV. We provide both. Actually, it's not just about your video CV. You also have the opportunity to view their paper CV, which means an employer can get a full-rounded profile of the candidate.
Okay, great. So if we go back to yourself as a person, now growing up, and coming to who you are today, have you had any influential role models in your life that have maybe helped you become who you are today?
I like to think that I draw inspiration from everyday things, whether it's an acquaintance I've made, whether it's a book I've read, whether it's an article I've come across. I feel like running a business now and being an entrepreneur, you just have to soak up whatever you can, you can find. And I think that's just been my daily inspiration. In terms of role models, maybe, I don't know. It's hard. As I said, I think I just get inspiration from everyday, articles, books I've read, etc.
Okay, great. Now, you've told us about your, the experience you had when you were applying for jobs. You sort of you were on all the job lists possible, trying to get a job. And you sort of saw that as a gap in the market. Is there any other thing that led you and your co-founder to also start Slync as a business?
Well, my other co-founder is my husband. And we were dating when we started Slync. Slync grew from our frustrations of being international students. It was very hard to get our foot in the door. We were minorities, we were diverse, and it was recession when we graduated. And it was just so difficult to try and get work experience or to even find anything suitable to build up our CVs. Then we thought, why don't we do something around personal branding? And that's when we developed a very basic website, which was around graduates. We were kind of trying to compete with LinkedIn, and we thought LinkedIn is for second, third, fourth job seekers, whereas our website would be for first-time job seekers. So that was always the intention of creating something for early talent, because we felt like there weren't tools, the necessary tools available for early talent.
Okay, great. And I do, understand, trying to get, especially as an international student, because I came to the UK as one, so I do understand how difficult it can be to get that first job experience. And then considering the recession you were referring to, I think those would have also sort of made things a bit more difficult. So moving on to my next question now, we think about how, the business has grown. If we go back to the early days, do you want to sort of take us on a journey on how, were there any key challenges you faced when starting the business, from the early days to what it has become? So some key challenges and how you managed that. I know that's a lot in one question, but let's see.
I think there were a lot of challenges that came across. I think the first challenge was the failed business. We did the website that dramatically failed. There were many reasons to why it failed, but then we pivoted the product. We put in a lot of time and effort into R&D, so customer discovery sessions, speaking to students, clients. I think that was a very fun time for us as entrepreneurs, because you're so passionate about that idea and you just want to take it to market and you just know it's going to work. And there's just so much adrenaline and so much excitement. But then when it's time to make the app live, you're just like, what do I do now? Am I like, what do I do? Do I do events? Am I supposed to go uni to uni? I think it's a very tough time for an entrepreneur at that point, because you really need to make strategic decisions. And I think the challenges are endless, because for me, I think my biggest challenge was setting up my team. I think working in a startup, a lot of candidates take it for it's fun and, there's lots of perks, etc. But it's actually a very challenging role for an individual to be in a startup. They need to understand what the end goal is. So the North Star, as we call it, like what is the objective of the company? Are they on the same? Oh, sorry, have I lost you?
No. It's
okay. The screen went black.
Yeah, no, sorry, that's fine.
So I think setting up the team was probably my biggest challenge. Finding the right people to understand your objective. Aside from that, finances was a big challenge because we bootstrapped the business. Logistically, financially, you need to make decisions that can ensure that strategically your metrics are met, etc. So I think one thing I've probably learned through these challenges is that it's okay to fail. I think failures define you in the present and the future. And I think as Richard Branson once said, that don't be embarrassed of your failures. So I think you just need to learn from your mistakes. There will be challenges. There will be challenges creating the MVP. There will be challenges taking the product to market. There will be challenges in your product life cycle, scaling, growing, customer acquisition. There's just so much to setting up the business and running it. I think it's just not about the idea, but it's about executing it. And I think that's the biggest challenge for an entrepreneur is, how do I execute this idea?
Yeah. And I just remember talking to a friend of mine today about this same conversation about how, business plans are well and fine. We can all do business plans. It's become easier these days. There are a lot of templates online and stuff. So, the plan is usually not the problem. The problem is the execution, just like you've said, because it's so easy to tell somebody what you want to do, but then getting it into fruition is, I think that's really where you have to prove yourself. So, I'm glad you've mentioned that in your answer. Now, I remember, so for the benefit of those that have just joined, Faiza and I, we've had a previous conversation, not really conversation, but we've invited Faiza to our university, to a university where I teach, to speak to our second year entrepreneurship students. So I still know a bit about Faiza's story and how she sort of started the business and has gotten it to where she is. So that way I know that there were quite a lot of ups and downs, and it is normal. I remember the last Fireside chat we had, I said the same thing. There's a book I read where they said that in Silicon Valley, you are known by the number of times you failed in a business. So failure is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just how we get, what we take away from that experience. It's an experience. It's not, and it can be positive, it can be negative. So it just depends on how we define it. So thank you for that. And now, before we carry on with our conversations, I'll just like to mention that one of the giveaways, the snacks, the $46 worth of snacks, is for those based in the USA. So please, if you're based in the USA, if you could put your name in the chat, so that way we have a separate spinner for those in the USA. The Amazon vouchers would go to every other person, but the snacks is for those based in the USA, because the manufacturer of those snacks is based in Washington State and they don't deliver out of the USA. So please, if you could pop your name. So Nikki has put her name in. I know James Stanton is in California. I know Bill is in Boston. So Rakia, if you could take note, Bill, James, and Nikki. I know that those three are. If there's any other person that is based in the States, please put your name in the chat. Also, if you are not a member of Founders and Mentors, please join Founders and Mentors. It's a free global mentoring platform for the pre-launch ecosystem. Taranum would put the link in the chat. If you're not a member yet, it's free to join. And it's one of the communities there, the business operations community there, that is hosting this fireside chats. So we carry on with our questions, Faiza. We now go over to finance. Finance is really something I'm passionate about. It's what my PhD is in. So let's talk about it. And you sort of mentioned that you had to bootstrap your business, from the early stages to, willing to run in the business. Do you want to tell us, because these days, a lot of us are on founders and mentors, and founders and mentors, we focus on those that are trying to launch their businesses. And one of the key things you see early stage founders focus on heavily is finance. And that's and what we're trying to do within founders and mentors is sort of discourage that mentality by trying to say you need to be able to validate the idea first, show that this idea works before you go on and start taking money outside. So do you want to take us through your bootstrapping journey? I feel like many people would learn from how you bootstrapped your company in the early days.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I think I learned it the hard way. We learned it the hard way. When we developed Slync and took it to market, we were kind of in crossroads because we went past the ideation stage. We developed the MVP. We took it to market. We validated. We had proof of concept. We had these great clients working with us, like GSK, Starbucks, Visa, Avanade. We validated that it works because these people hired from us, they came back to us. So we kind of ran the whole cycle and understood that, yes, whatever we've developed, it's worked. Obviously, it's a version 1. But what I did last year is I took the time to speak to lots of investors. I felt like I'm ready. So I took 5 months to speak to investors from all over the world, including Singapore, Germany, Switzerland, United Kingdom, Dubai, America. And a lot of people ask you, what is your runway? Now, obviously, you have to be very clear what your runway is. Is it 18 months? Is it 15 months? How long can I sustain my business? For me and my husband, we're quite privileged in the way that we have a runway, we can run our business, but there's only so much we can do with our personal funding. I cannot scale Slync the way I envision it with my personal funds because I don't have the capacity to expand the way I envision it. But however, when I spoke to these investors, I felt like we weren't ready. We weren't ready for so many reasons. One of which was, as I said, we were on crossroads because we've passed the ideation stage. The product is in the market. And the next question everyone has is, how much are you revenue generating? And when I was speaking to these investors, we were pre-revenue. So it's always the same question over and over again. And obviously, entrepreneurs need to understand that, am I ready to take someone else's money, multiply it? Can they trust me to take this product to the next stage? Last year, we weren't ready. And I think this realization came out of speaking to so many investors. And I had people like call me in the middle of the night from Singapore saying, oh, I have an investor, you need to speak to them right now. And it was just so uncomfortable. I don't need to speak to anybody right now, but it was, you'll come across all kinds of people and you just need to be very, very careful because, you've kind of, I don't know, at least for us, like Slync is so close to our hearts. It's within our DNA. We've spent our personal funds developing it and we are still bootstrapped. We are still spending our own money on it. And I feel like when we know within the product life cycle that, yes, I am ready to go out and raise investments, I will go and do that. Because as an investor myself, I understand how hard it is to lose your own money because you're constantly spending, you'll have suppliers, you'll work with branding companies who say, we'll reposition your branding in this way and that way, and then you'll lose 5,000 pounds. And we've done that. We've done that with Slync. We've done that with our previous website. And we know how it feels to just keep losing the money. So I think when I am absolutely ready to go to an investor is when I know my figures. I know that I'm scaling at an X amount. And I've heard investors say that you don't have to have 100,000 customers. You don't have to be earning 500,000 or something. They just need to see the growth. And I think with my business, I'm probably not ready to show those numbers until I can validate to myself, the team can validate that, yes, we have that growth in place, and now we can go out and speak to investors. Because I think what happens is when you're not ready yourself, but very desperate, desperation doesn't really get you anywhere. Because when you're desperate, you give up a lot of equity, you give up decision-making, you're not clear on your decisions. And I think it just kind of messes up the cycle of your journey. And I think entrepreneurs really, really need to be clear that this is when we should be raising investment. I mean, we were very lucky because we actually get so R&D tax relief, we get that every year, equity free. So we've gotten like almost till date, we've gotten 57,000 back. And that's really helped because we've developed Android and we've done a lot of technological advancements. So I feel like every entrepreneur should know where they are in their product life cycle before they go out and raise investments. And they shouldn't do anything out of desperation. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much, Faiza. You know what you've said, your answer is gold, because this is something we are very passionate about at Founders and Mentors. Like I've said, take your time, validate, and it's so good. Like you've done all this stuff, you've validated the idea, you have this huge, GSK. I remember when I saw your LinkedIn post from Slync, I think that was a while back, that Visa was now one of your clients. So you do have these big names, and that is enough justification to want to go and take external finance. But it's good that you're being cautious of the fact that, am I ready to take external finance? Because, I don't know if you've watched Dropout. It's the story based on Theranos. So Theranos, that was the American blood company that was trying to, Stanford dropout, she's a lady, and she was trying to come up with this device where you take a few drops of blood, put in the machine, and yeah. And it was this whole thing. Desperation led her to take money from VCs. And, the VCs are not going to be smiling with you because they have taken this money from institutional investors as well. They need to generate a return. So when you start acting on desperation, and then, like you said, I think I really liked what you said, giving up a lot of equity. Sometimes you find out that maybe if I had waited and was a bit more confident with my business, I would have, be in a better place to negotiate. So thank you very much for saying this. So I think another quick question is, do you want to tell us how many years you've run the business as on a bootstrap model?
Ever since we started the website, we've had many horror stories throughout our journey, I think, which is why we understand finance, we understand what it means to work off of someone else's money, and we value that as well, which is why we really haven't gone out and invested as yet. When we first started our website, we actually spent £250,000, and this agency said they're going to do our branding, they're going to do our customer discovery sessions, they're going to take it to market. And then right before we were going to launch, they said, something's happened. We won't be able to launch tomorrow because we need another £25,000. And we were just like, oh my God, what is this, a scam? Then we got our lawyers involved, and that was just so disheartening because literally I'm so excited because we're on the brink of launching an amazing product. And now I'm going back and forth with lawyers, having to spend even more money on this. And then I remember we got an external auditor, and they tested what they had developed, and there was nothing. It was hollow. They were just scammers. And my lawyer said, it's up to you. You can either go and sue them for a lot of money, or you can walk away and you can go and develop it again. It was so heartbreaking just going through barristers and lawyers and legal letters. And it was a very disheartening decision, but we walked away. We built the website again. And then that company went bankrupt.
Oh, good. Karma.
So And I think we had that mentality when we developed our website, that the more you spend, the more successful your business would be. I'm glad we made those decisions. They were very expensive decisions, but we learned a lot. And now the way we run Slync is we're very careful where we put our money. If something isn't required, we don't do it. And this is the ethos that all our team members have. And I'm very glad that we have it's a very small knit family team. We all understand the value of money. They will never, I actually have someone in recruitment. He just wouldn't ask money for any tools. And I'm like, if you need it, you take it. But I think we just all understand the value of money, especially in a startup. You just have to be very careful.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. It really validates the gospel we're trying to teach. Okay, so I have a few questions. I'll just run them through you. How did you build the team for your company? Can you tell how you've overcome the recruitment challenges? Yeah, so how do you manage recruitment now for Slync?
Internally, we have a very streamlined process for hiring internal staff. Both of us, the co-founders, do the interviews. I think only because every team member for me is an asset. I think when you go and work in a bigger company, you're kind of a number, you have a robust system in place, you have the CRMs, but for us, every team member is a gem, because whatever they bring to the table is going to help us grow, multiply our consumers, etc. So we learned it the hard way. We had all kinds of people on our team, from people coming into the office being drunk, and it was just a nightmare. And we couldn't say anything. And then they would, like, before Christmas, we had someone say, "Oh, I'm leaving." And I was like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how your contract works. So I think we really learned it the hard way. So that's why when we were looking for developers, we interviewed 20 people until we came across the right developer. And I think for a startup, it's so important to hire the right people because, again, we had a situation where 2 people left at the same time, and literally we went into a roadblock. So I think it's so important to just not hire fast, but hire slower is better, because then you get to understand, are these the right people for me? So we have it's very simple the way our recruitment works. We just have a 2-stage process. I like to have a phone call with every person before they go into an interview, because again, it's all about personality, individualism. I need to know the person. I need to feel comfortable working with them. So usually I have a very informal chat. I tell them this is not an interview. I just need to get to know you. And I've come across some really, really inspiring individuals who ask me intellectual questions about the HR industry, share their opinions, etc. And then if I like them, we go into 2nd-stage interview. So we've really defined the way that we hire people, and it's really helped us find the right people for our team.
Oh, good. Thanks for that one. Now, the next question says, what would you say has been the greatest challenge in Slync's journey so far? Has there been anything that has surprised you about the entrepreneurial process?
I think the whole journey is a surprise. Right from your ideation to taking it to market, every step of the way is a challenge. I think just going back many, many years, I think the biggest challenge for me was understanding, what are my skill sets? What am I good at? And I remember having like numerous arguments with my husband. You do it. No, you do the email. No, you write the email. And we didn't understand each other's skill sets. Like, where are we good at? And I think that was the most important thing for the both of us, to really hone on our skill sets. And now we've kind of divided our tasks. So I do operations, marketing, and he does the finance and the technical side. So that's really helped us run an efficient business, because it was actually a big challenge for us to really understand what are our skill sets. The other challenge was the team itself. And, I like to think that managing a team, being an entrepreneur, you're a visionary, but being a leader is something else, because being a leader, you're actually executing the idea. So I think you need to learn as an entrepreneur that you're a leader as well, and your team looks up to you, and you really need to know how to manage people, because that's the most important thing about running a business. So once you overcome that, I think it becomes easier.
Okay, great. And yeah, managing people is a very, very big deal because there are just so many things to take into consideration. I think with managing people, you are managing egos, and it's not the easiest of things. And now I remember when I was studying for my accounting qualification, and I remember my tutor said that, the people that tend to be CEOs are people that are described as people's person. So someone that is easy to get along with, someone that knows how to get along with people. It is a skill indeed. It is. I think that's one of the most essential skills you can learning how to get along with people. So thank you for that. Now, as we begin to round up our conversation, Faiza, now, I see that Reiki has asked another question. Okay, so I've asked you this one. Okay, you've answered it already. Now, if I continue with the questions I've been asking, now, if we go into the tech industry, not the tech, the HR industry where Slync operates, and we know that Slync is focusing on a certain generation and focusing on those from ethnic minority. Now, over time, since you started Slync to where you are now, have you seen any difference in opportunities that are, provided to people of ethnic minority? Do you think the landscape is changing for these people? What do you make of it?
In terms of diversity and inclusion?
Yes.
Just speaking off of the clients we work with, definitely. I'll give you an example. Our first client was Department for Education. And I was a little startled that they came to us because they're very conventional. But he said to me that we don't have any problems getting candidates. We will post a role and we'll get 1,500 candidates. What we struggle with is diversity. And then we had another client from a finance background, and they had a data scientist role and they were looking for girls. So I feel like, yes, it is changing, maybe not to the extent that we want to see. But then I think we can go into many different discussions of how, companies like IBM, they're still working on their targets for getting girls into STEM roles. But then it goes back to education and how you educate girls, etc. So I think there's just so many layers involved to this process, but I think definitely things are changing. Bigger companies are becoming examples, especially in terms of early talent. I don't know about other targets and other departments, but in terms of early talent, I do know that companies like IBM actually have almost a 50-50, which is amazing. And I do know that the other clients we work with always come to us and say either we need girls or they're working on their diversity brackets. And obviously that's why we've created Slync to help these companies overcome these challenges.
Okay, good. That's really good to know. So I think from your answer, you are attracting more competitors into your niche by saying that there is a market there. So good. That's good to know. My next question now, before we go to another question from Tim, says, my next question is really thinking about, you told us how you spent a bit of time, for the last 5 months you spent talking to investors. Do you think being a woman, so there's this whole gist about being a woman and how that sort of negatively affects your chances of raising finance? I'll give you an example. I was on a Barclays call, I think a few months ago, and the Barclays, they have this, incubator for entrepreneurs. They had this group for female founders. And they invited this person to come and speak on, gender disparities in raising finance. And this lady, one of the ladies there on the panel, gave her experience. She said that they were trying, I don't know if it's her or her friend, was trying to raise some finance for their business. And she sent emails to a lot of investors and got no reply. Then she used her husband's email to send emails to investors, and her husband got much more replies than she got. So that's the story I've heard. I want to, you've had the experience. What do you think?
You've given me an idea. I need to try that. I need to try that. Use my husband's account. So I'll share a story with you.
Okay.
I completed a professional degree in artificial intelligence last year, only because we eventually want to take Slync into AI. So I was on a call with an investor, and we were talking about AI because his background was AI and data mining, etc. And, I was telling him about our future plans and how we want to implement AI into Slync's functionality, etc. And he just completely shut me off because he thought, as a woman, what would I know about AI? And I had just finished this course. So I started talking about forward propagation, back propagation, machine learning, everything I've learned. And he's like, oh, okay. He completely ignored me after that. But I feel like it's definitely a bit more harder for women to raise finance as opposed to men. And I think there are lots of groups and forums that women can kind of take support from to help them, gain this investment. I'm obviously not in a position where I can say, yes, I've had success, because we've obviously stopped that cycle. We started it and we've stopped. But it would be very interesting to, exercise on what this woman has done. Maybe I'll get more responses. Who knows?
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now I've given you a tip to try. So I'll read Tim's question to you. So it seems Slync is at the forefront of video CV recruitment. Your expertise includes both sides of the process, advising clients and to providing hiring authorities with how to evaluate video CVs. Do you have a revenue stream from both job applicants and hiring entities?
So for candidates, it's completely free to download and use the app. Our revenue stream comes from clients. We initially started off as a subscription model. So very similar to LinkedIn, we had 3 different tiers. We very soon took that off. And now our model is very simple. Job postings are completely free, and you pay a fee to unlock video CVs. Again, the whole reason why we've done this model is because the whole ideology behind Slync is that we want to reduce recruiter costs. We don't charge on success fees, so there are 0 success fees. You just use us as a SaaS product. So if you like a candidate, then you basically unlock their profile and you pay a price for that.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to quickly do our regular giveaways. So Faiza, if you stay with me, we'll do our regular giveaways, and then we'll come back to you for some final remarks before we finish off. And I think something to say again about the financing issue is, again, the providers of finance, especially in the private equity side, so venture capitalists, business angels, and most of the people that make the key decisions about funding are usually men. So we might say, if we get more women to be VCs and business angels, we might begin to see. But again, I've seen where people have argued that it doesn't necessarily make a difference. Sometimes it's a much more cultural and psychological issue. So it's good, like you've said, there's so many layers to these kinds of conversation. I don't think 1 hour would be enough to cover all of them. So if you allow me, we'll go to Rekia. Rekia would spin our wheels. Like we say, our regular giveaways are 2 £20 Amazon vouchers to people based outside of the USA. And then we have $46 worth of snacks from fully charged allergy-friendly snacks for people based in the USA. So Rekia, all yours.
Okay. So for the Amazon voucher, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, so for the Amazon vouchers. Congratulations,
Abiola. So fantastic. Abiola, if you put your email address, please, I would send you the voucher right away once we're done. All right, Amazon voucher number 2.
Congratulations, everyone.
Good. Ronke and Abiola, please provide your email addresses and I'll send you the vouchers. Okay.
Okay. So for the goodies,
Nikki, okay, good. Nikki, I have your email address, so you don't need to send it to me. So I'll reach out.
Is it me or was it James?
James.
Oh, was it James? Oh, there you go. Oh, sorry, Nikki. I thought it stopped on you.
I know. Next time I will get those snaps.
Okay. So James, I have your email address. Anyway, James, Tim knows you very well. So I think Bing would be the one sending out the snacks. So congratulations to everyone that has won the giveaways. We do this every month. This month, I'm not sure why we've not had a high turn-up. I think people are on summer holidays, but the recording would be sent out anyway, so that's it's not a problem. If you bear with me, I will just. Okay, thank you very much, Reike, for that. Yes. You will get it one day, Nikki. You will. So we come back to you, Faiza, and we ask you for any closing remarks. I think before you give us the closing remarks, we want to, my question to you would be, what has kept you going? You know, despite all the challenges, the the legal battles and all that. Why haven't you given up on Slync? It's not like it's just a question. I want to know what has kept you going, so we can drag some inspiration from that.
I think you just need to love what you do and need to believe in the product and in the process. I think as an entrepreneur, there are 3 things that I've always stuck by, and that's being resilient, being consistent, and being in love. I think Slync is mine and my husband's brainchild. We've kind of grown up in the past few years developing it, learning not only about the industry, but about ourselves as well. We've learned so much from it. And we know what our end goal is. And I feel like when you know what your end goal is, it makes you very happy because you know exactly where you want to be in life. If you don't know what your end goal is, I think that makes you very confused because you actually don't know where to place Slync. And I think over time, it's okay when you start a business and you don't know what your end goal is. But when you figure that out, I think life becomes easier and we know where we want to place Slync on the world map. But it's about figuring out what it is.
Okay, good. Thank you very much for this, Faiza. I've written them down: being resilient, consistent, and loving what you're doing. I think it's very important. You tend to see that a lot of people that are successful would say that it's really just a compounding effect. Your consistency compounds. And when it blows up, it's what we call success. It's just the fact that you've been doing it. You've been consistent at it. You've been, pushing and pushing, and then it all comes together. I think the problem is that being consistent is not the easiest of things, especially when it's a very difficult journey. So thank you very much for that one, Faiza. So I come back to you for some final remarks. What do you want to leave us with? We have several founders on the call. We have people that will listen to the recording. What are your final remarks?
I think my final remarks would be for women. I think women in general are conditioned to act and behave in a certain way. And I say this from personal experience where one of my co-founders is male. I've had my variation of situations where if I say something, it's regarded as aggression, whereas when my husband says something, he's firm. And I think women should have a stop at nothing attitude. They can have a can-do attitude. It's like how Sheryl Sandberg said, if you get a seat in the rocket ship, don't ask what seat it is, take it. So I really believe that we can push our boundaries and we just need to speak up when required. We need to do the work that we've come out to do. And because I work in diversity and inclusion, we're always speaking to young girls and young women. And we're always speaking to companies like IBM and Visa who are trying to get these girls to come into STEM. And as I said, we're conditioned from a very young age to act and behave in a certain way. It kind of starts from root level for anything. So I think my messages would definitely be to women, make sure you push your boundaries. You shouldn't be afraid to speak when you need to speak.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And I am really a strong advocate for women going out there and making a difference in the world. Some of you might have noticed, but it's very essential for different reasons. By doing that, you're being a role model to people coming after you. You're also giving your life partner some sanity. I think if you just stay there and do nothing, you might drive them crazy. So it's a good thing to go out and do something for yourself. So thank you very much, Faiza, for your time. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I know everyone on the call did enjoy and take something out of the call. Thank you again for your time. Thank you to Slync for helping promote the event. We might not have had as many people as we planned, but we will. It's good we have this conversation. For me, it's a good thing, and for the people that were able to come on, it's a good thing. So thank you again, Faiza.
Thank you to you, and thank you to everyone who took the time to come and join us in this conversation. And hopefully I'll speak to you soon, Winifred.
Same here, Same here. So
thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Nikki has said I followed you on LinkedIn, so you've certainly got a new follower. So that's it to everyone on the call. We've now come to the end for today. I'll send out the recordings, and I will see you on our next Fireside chat. So bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Faiza. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.